This child is mine. Mei Ling Vale stood alone at the center of a circle of merciless gazes in the opulent grand ballroom of the Cathay Hotel, beneath crystal chandeliers that trembled like captured stars, her emerald silk gown clinging to the unmistakable curve of pregnancy, copper hair braided severely, posture erect yet fragile with restrained defiance, eyes luminous with unshed tears and unquenched fire. The warlord's voice thundered across the marble floor, branding her ruined, demanding the name of the father who had abandoned her to shame. If you haven't yet, click the subscribe button now, because what comes next changes everything. In that single, impossible proclamation, the scorned outcast became untouchable, the bastard heir became imperial blood, and the lie that should have shattered them both ignited a passion fierce enough to burn kingdoms to ash and forge them anew. Shanghai, autumn 1925. The city pulsed like a living jewel along the Huangpu River, its nights ablaze with neon and opium smoke, jazz spilling from dance halls, rickshaws clattering beneath strings of electric lanterns. In the international settlement, East and West collided in feverish splendor, and nowhere more vividly than at the annual Harvest Moon Masquerade hosted in the grand ballroom of the Cathay Hotel. Mei Ling Vale arrived late, as always a creature of the stage rather than society. She had performed that evening at the Lyceum Theater, a sold-out run of Puccini's Madama Butterfly that left the audience weeping and the critics raving. Her voice, rich and haunting, had earned her the nickname Shanghai's Nightingale, a title whispered with equal parts admiration and envy. Tonight she wore emerald silk cheongsam cut daringly high at the slits, the fabric clinging to her slender frame like river mist. Her copper hair, inheritance from an English father she had never known, was pinned in an elaborate chignon threaded with jade pins. A black lace mask concealed the upper half of her face, leaving only her mouth and those striking green eyes visible. She moved through the crowd with practiced grace, accepting champagne she did not drink, smiling at compliments she barely heard. The masquerade was invitation only, a ritual gathering of Shanghai's elite. Warlords in tailored Western suits, foreign taipans with their diamond-draped wives, white Russian émigrés glittering in borrowed finery, and the new Chinese merchant princes eager to prove their sophistication. Ancient tradition mingled with modern excess. Red paper lanterns hung beside crystal chandeliers, and the ritual wine, served only on this night, was said to honor the harvest gods while loosening tongues and inhibitions alike. Mei Ling accepted a delicate porcelain cup from a passing attendant. The wine was deep crimson, fragrant with lychee and something sharper, almost metallic. She had drunk it before in smaller measures. It warmed the blood and softened the edges of the world. Tonight she was weary, bone-deep weary from months of relentless performance and the quiet ache of loneliness that followed applause. She drank deeply. Almost at once the room shifted. The chandeliers seemed to multiply, their light fracturing into prisms. The jazz band's brassy wail slowed, deepened, became something older, like temple drums echoing across centuries. Heat bloomed beneath her skin, sudden and alarming. More wine, cousin? Vivian Harlow appeared at her elbow, sleek in scarlet satin, her smile sharp as a stiletto. Vivian, daughter of Mei Ling's aunt by marriage, had always moved in circles Mei Ling only visited. Tonight her eyes glittered with something Mei Ling could not name. "I think I've had enough," Mei Ling murmured, but her voice sounded distant, as though spoken underwater. "Nonsense." Vivian pressed another cup into her hand. "It's the harvest ritual. One must drink fully to honor the old ways. It brings clarity." Mei Ling drank again, obedient as a child. The warmth spread, became fire. The room swayed gently, like a ship at anchor. Faces blurred behind their masks. Peacock feathers, golden dragons, Venetian botta. Laughter echoed strangely. She needed air. Setting the cup on a passing tray, she slipped through the crowd toward the terrace doors. The night beyond was cooler, scented with river mist and distant jasmine. But even here the lanterns pulsed in time with her heartbeat. That was when she collided with him. The impact was gentle yet absolute. Her shoulder struck a chest of unyielding strength, and strong hands steadied her before she could stumble. She looked up, far up, and the world narrowed to a single point of focus. He was tall, impossibly so, cloaked in midnight brocade that seemed to drink the light. Silver hair fell past his shoulders like moonlight made solid. Behind a simple black mask, his eyes gleamed faintly amber, ancient and knowing. His skin was pale as porcelain, his features carved with aristocratic severity. High cheekbones, a mouth both cruel and sensual. He looked like something stepped out of legend rather than life. "Careful," he said, voice low, resonant, edged with an accent she could not place. Neither fully Chinese nor Western, but something older. Mei Ling tried to speak, to apologize, but the words tangled. Heat flooded her cheeks, her throat, lower. The wine, she thought dimly. Something in the wine. "You feel it too," he murmured, not a question. His hand lingered at her waist, steadying or claiming. She should have pulled away. Instead she swayed toward him, drawn by a pull deeper than reason. "I don't," she began, but the sentence dissolved. He glanced around, expression tightening. The terrace was crowded, curious eyes already turning their way. "Come," he said suddenly, decision made. "We both need distance from this madness." He took her hand. His fingers were cool, yet the touch burned. They moved together through side doors, down corridors lit by flickering sconces, up a service stair she had never noticed. Each step felt heavier, the air thicker. More than once they paused, leaning against cool marble walls, breathing hard as though they had run miles. "Where are we going?" she managed at last, her voice husky. "Away," he answered simply. "Anywhere the air is not poisoned." They reached a door at the end of an upper hallway. He pushed it open with his shoulder, guiding her inside. The room was a private suite, Spartan yet luxurious, with dark lacquered furniture and tall windows overlooking the bun's glittering lights. Moonlight spilled across a wide bed draped in indigo silk. A single jade lamp burned low. He closed the door. The click of the latch sounded final. Mei Ling sank onto the edge of the bed, head spinning. He crossed to a sideboard, pouring water from a crystal pitcher with hands that trembled faintly. "Here," he said, kneeling before her. Kneeling, this man who radiated ancient authority, and offering the glass. She drank. The water was cool, real, anchoring. When she lowered the glass, he was watching her with an intensity that stole what little breath remained. "You are burning," he said quietly. "So are you." He set the glass aside. Slowly, deliberately, he reached up and removed his mask. The face revealed was even more devastating without concealment. Timeless, beautiful, dangerous. Mei Ling's fingers moved of their own accord, lifting her own mask away. His gaze darkened. "Gods," he whispered, voice rough. "You are." He did not finish. Instead he leaned forward, slowly enough that she could have stopped him. She did not. Their lips met, tentative at first, a question. Then hunger answered, fierce and mutual. The kiss deepened, became desperate. Hands sought skin. Silk slid from shoulders. Breath mingled in gasps. They fell back onto the bed, tangled in fabric and need. Every touch felt inevitable, fated. His mouth traced fire along her throat. Her fingers clutched silver hair. Whispers, names neither fully knew, promises neither could keep, filled the moonlit dark. The world narrowed to sensation. Cool skin against fevered, the slide of silk, the taste of salt and desire. Time fractured. There was only this man, this moment, this impossible recognition of something soul deep. When release came, it shattered them both. They clung together afterward, trembling, hearts racing in unnatural unison. The last thing Mei Ling remembered was his fingers laced through hers. His lips against her temple, murmuring words in a language older than empires. Then darkness claimed her. Morning light stabbed like accusation. Mei Ling woke alone, sheets cool beside her, body aching in ways both exquisite and damning. Her gown lay discarded across a chair. The room was empty, the pitcher overturned as though in haste. No note, no token, no trace of the man whose touch still lingered on her skin. She pressed shaking hands to her face, trying to summon his features. Silver hair, amber eyes, a voice like midnight, but memory already frayed at the edges. Only sensation remained, the certainty that something irrevocable had occurred. 3 weeks later, the nausea began. For weeks later, her waist thickened. By the 6th week, the healer confirmed what her body already knew. Mei Ling stood at her dressing room mirror, hand resting on the faint curve beneath silk, staring at her reflection with dawning horror. A child, father unknown. In Shanghai's merciless world, this was not scandal. It was annihilation. And somewhere in the city's glittering shadows, an immortal emperor stirred from restless sleep, haunted by dreams of emerald eyes and a voice that called to him across centuries. Dreams he could not yet name, but could not escape. The morning after the masquerade, Mei Ling woke to a city that had not changed and a life that had. Sunlight filtered through the lace curtains of her small apartment above the theater district, painting pale stripes across the rumpled sheets. Her head throbbed with the dull persistence of too much wine, or something worse. Every muscle ached as though she had danced for hours without rest. She lay still for a long moment, staring at the cracked plaster ceiling, trying to piece together the fractured night. Fragments returned in cruel flashes. The taste of lychee and metal on her tongue, Vivian's insistent smile, the terrace doors swinging open to cool night air. Then the stranger, silver hair, amber eyes, a voice that resonated like a gong struck in an empty temple. His hand at her waist, the private suite, heat, skin, breathless surrender. But his face, his name gone, slipped away like smoke through fingers. She sat up slowly, wincing. Her emerald cheongsam lay discarded across the chaise, creased and stained in ways that made her stomach lurch. On the bedside table stood an overturned water glass and a single jade hairpin, not hers. Mei Ling pressed her palms to her eyes until sparks danced behind the lids. It had happened. She could feel the evidence in every tender place on her body. But to whom? And why could she not remember the details that mattered? She rose, bathed in cold water that did little to ease the fever beneath her skin, and dressed in a simple gray tunic. The mirror showed a woman pale and hollow-eyed, the severe braid doing nothing to hide the marks blooming along her throat. She covered them with a high collar and went downstairs to face the day. The theater was quiet. Sunday matinee canceled, the company nursing hangovers or reputations. Only old Chun, the stage doorman, greeted her with his usual bow. "Miss Vale, you look unwell. Shall I fetch tea?" She managed to smile. "Later, thank you." In her dressing room, the flowers from last night's performance still perfumed the air. Roses from admirers, orchids from the director. Among them, a small white card in handwriting she did not recognize. "You sang like a goddess." No signature. She turned the card over twice, searching for meaning, finding none. The nausea began 3 weeks later. At first she blamed rich food, late nights, the lingering effects of whatever had been in that wine. But the mornings grew merciless. She would wake, stumble to the basin, and retch until her ribs ached and tears streamed down her face. By the 4th week her waist, always slender, began to resist the familiar fastenings of her gowns. The theater seamstress, Madame Lu, let out 2 cheongsams with careful neutrality, asking no questions. Mei Ling told herself it was nerves, the new season's pressures, grief over a night she could not fully reclaim. But her body knew better. On a rain-lashed afternoon in early November, she sent for Dr. Hargrove, an English physician who treated the foreign community and kept confidences for the right fee. He arrived discreetly, examined her with professional detachment, and sat back with a sigh. "How long since your last courses, Miss Vale?" She counted silently. 10 weeks, perhaps 11. He nodded. "You are with child." "Approximately 8 weeks, I would judge." The room tilted. Mei Ling gripped the arms of her chair. "You are certain?" "As certain as medicine allows." He studied her face. "There is no gentleman who might be informed?" She shook her head once. The motion felt like surrender. Dr. Hargrove hesitated. In that case, I must advise caution. Shanghai is not kind to unmarried mothers, whatever their fame. If you wish to, consider options. No, the word came sharp and immediate. She pressed a hand to her still flat abdomen, protective already. No. He inclined his head. Very well. I will attend you discreetly, but you must prepare for what society will say. Society began speaking within days. She never learned how the truth escaped. Perhaps a maid noticed the seamstress's alterations. Perhaps Madame Lu let something slip over Mahjong. By the end of the week, whispers threaded through the rehearsal halls and green rooms. Vivian arrived first, of course. She swept into Mei Ling's apartment unannounced. First stole dripping November rain, eyes bright with theatrical concern. "My poor darling," she cooed, embracing Mei Ling with scented enthusiasm. "The most dreadful rumor has reached me." Mei Ling stiffened but did not pull away. "Has it? That you are enceinte?" Vivian drew back, searching her face. "Tell me it isn't true." Mei Ling met her gaze steadily. "It is true." Vivian's expression flickered. Shock, satisfaction, calculation, all in the space of a heartbeat. "But how? Who?" She lowered her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "Some foreign admirer? A married patron? You can tell me." "I don't know," Mei Ling said quietly. Vivian's brows arched. "Don't know? The night of the masquerade. The wine affected me strangely. I remember fragments only. Not enough." For a moment Vivian looked almost genuine in her surprise. Then the mask slid back into place. "How tragic," she murmured. "Memory stolen along with virtue. The family will be devastated." The family wasted no time. 2 days later Mei Ling was summoned to the Harlow mansion in the French Concession, a palatial home of marble and mahogany where her aunt and Vivian held court. Uncle Reginald, Vivian's father and nominal head of the extended family, presided over the drawing room like a judge. Aunt Cecilia dabbed at dry eyes with a lace handkerchief. Vivian sat poised and lovely, the picture of sorrow. "You have disgraced us," Uncle Reginald began without preamble. "The Harlow name, my name, linked to scandal. Performers are one thing, Mei Ling, but this, I did not intend." "Intentions matter little," Aunt Cecilia interrupted coldly. "Results do. You carry a child with no father to claim it, no house to shield it." "I will manage alone," Mei Ling said. Uncle Reginald laughed bitterly. "Alone? With what? Your wages from singing arias to drunken foreigners? The theater will drop you the moment your condition shows. No decent venue will have you." He was right. Already the director had spoken of resting her for the spring season. "You will remove to the servants' wing," he continued. "Your allowance is suspended. You will take meals separately. And when the child comes," his voice hardened, "we will decide its fate then." Mei Ling stood slowly. "You are imprisoning me." "We are protecting the family," Vivian said softly. "From you." That night, in a narrow room under the eaves that smelled of camphor and old linen, Mei Ling sat at a scarred table and wrote letters she never sent. "To the stranger with silver hair. If you read this, know that part of you grows beneath my heart. I remember only your eyes." She burned them one by one in the tiny grate. Outside, Shanghai glittered on, indifferent, jazz and gunfire, opium dreams and broken promises. Somewhere in its hidden depths, an immortal emperor paced the halls of his jade palace, haunted by dreams of a woman with emerald eyes and a voice that called to him across the ages. Dreams he could not name but could not escape. And in the quiet dark, Mei Ling pressed her palm to the faint curve of life beneath silk, whispering promises to a child who would enter the world already condemned. "We will survive this, little one. Somehow we will." By December, Shanghai had turned its face against Mei Ling Vale, the city that had once adored her, filling theaters to overflowing, showering her dressing room with gardenias and champagne, now averted its eyes. Invitations ceased. The director of the Lyceum, a portly Austrian who had once kissed her hand with theatrical fervor, now sent polite notes regretting that her indisposition made further performances impossible until after confinement. Translation: no theater would risk the scandal of a visibly pregnant unwed singer on stage. Her allowance from the Harlow family, meager to begin with, was formally suspended. Uncle Reginald's letter arrived by servant, sealed with red wax and worded with icy precision. Until such time as the matter of paternity is resolved to the family's satisfaction, no further funds will be advanced. You will remain in residence at the Harlow mansion and conduct yourself with the decorum befitting your reduced circumstances. Reduced circumstances. The phrase echoed in her mind like a slap. She was moved that same week from her sunny apartment above the theater to a narrow chamber in the eastern wing of the Harlow mansion. A room once used for storage, its single window overlooking the servants' courtyard. Her possessions arrived in 2 trunks. Gowns she could no longer wear, sheet music now useless, a few books, the jade hairpin she had found that morning after. Meals were brought on a tray by a maid who kept her gaze fixed on the floor. No conversation, no visitors. The door was not locked, but the message was clear. She was a prisoner of shame. Vivian orchestrated the isolation with exquisite care. She visited often, always with a basket of fruit or a new shawl, for the baby's sake, and always with news calculated to wound. "The Russian countess was asking after you," she would say lightly, arranging pears in a bowl. "I told her you were indisposed. One doesn't like to spread unpleasantness." Or, "Such a pity about the New Year's gala at the French Club. They've withdrawn your invitation." Standards, you understand. Each visit ended with the same question, delivered in a tone of sweet concern. "Have you remembered anything more about that night, cousin? Any detail at all? A name, perhaps?" Mei Ling never answered. She had learned silence was her only armor. But silence could not stop the rumors. They spread through Shanghai's drawing rooms and club lounges like typhoid. She had seduced a married diplomat. She had taken multiple lovers and refused to choose. She had trafficked with opium addicts in some den on the Bund. The cruelest version, whispered behind fans at mahjong tables, was that she had deliberately ensnared a powerful man who now denied her to protect his position. No one suggested the truth, that she had been drugged, that memory had been stolen along with choice. The child grew. By late December, the curve of her belly was unmistakable beneath loose tunics. She felt the first flutters one night while reading by candlelight, an internal ripple like wings brushing silk. She pressed her palm there, tears starting unbidden. "Hello, little one," she whispered into the quiet room. "We are not wanted here, but I want you." The summons came on a morning thick with winter fog. A liveried servant delivered the heavy cream envelope sealed with the crimson dragon emblem of the imperial household, an emblem few in Shanghai had ever seen outside museums. Mei Ling broke the wax with trembling fingers. "You are commanded to attend the Grand Winter Assembly at the Cathay Hotel on the night of the new moon. Your presence is required in the matter of imperial concern." No signature beyond the steward's mark. No explanation. She understood at once. This was no honor. It was judgment. The city's elite, warlords, foreign consuls, merchant princes, and the hidden immortal court that watched from the shadows, would gather under the guise of celebration. And at the center, paraded like a cautionary tale, would stand the disgraced nightingale of Shanghai, heavy with nameless child, for all to see and condemn. Vivian appeared within the hour, eyes bright with triumph masked as sympathy. "You must go, of course," she said, smoothing Mei Ling's hair with sisterly tenderness. Refusal would be seen as defiance, and one wouldn't wish to anger certain parties. Mei Ling met her gaze in the mirror. "You arranged this." Vivian's smile did not waver. "I merely suggested to a mutual acquaintance that clarity was needed, for everyone's sake." She left behind a gown. Simple black silk, high-necked, severe. "Something appropriate to your condition," she said. That night Mei Ling stood at her narrow window, watching fog swirl around the courtyard lantern. Her hand rested on the swell beneath her heart. "They will try to break us tomorrow," she told the child quietly. "But we will stand straight. We will not give them our tears." Far across the city, in the hidden jade palace beneath the Bund, the Dragon Emperor paced marble floors older than dynasties. For weeks he had been haunted by dreams of emerald eyes and a voice that sang like wind through bamboo, by a scent of jasmine and rain he could not place. His advisors pressed him. Rebellion stirred in the northern provinces. The mortal warlords grew bold. The ancient compact between immortal and human frayed. He needed an heir, a symbol, stability, and yet every candidate presented immortal daughters of noble houses, human princesses offered for alliance, felt wrong, hollow. He had attended the harvest masquerades seeking distraction, drinking the ritual wine only as courtesy. Then, fragments, a woman in emerald silk, laughter turning to gasps, private room, moonlight on copper hair. He remembered the taste of her skin, the sound of her voice breaking on his name, though what name she had spoken, he could not recall. When the invitation list for the winter assembly reached him, one name seized his attention like a blade to the throat. Miss Mei-ling Vale, the nightingale. He had heard her sing once, years ago, before fame fully claimed her. The memory had lingered like incense. Now she would stand before the assembly, disgraced, alone, and something ancient and possessive stirred in his immortal blood. He summoned his steward. "She will attend," he said, "and she will be under my protection. Ensure it." The steward bowed, concealing surprise. In her attic room, Mei-ling laid the black gown across the bed and began to prepare. Tomorrow she would walk into the dragon's den carrying shame like armor. She did not yet know that the dragon himself waited there, and that he had already begun to remember. The night of the new moon, Shanghai held its breath. Fog rolled in thick from the Huangpu, swallowing street lamps and neon signs alike, turning the Bund into a dream of ghost lights and shadowed silhouettes. The Cathay Hotel loomed at the heart of it, its Art Deco facade glowing like a lantern in the mist. Inside the grand ballroom, the elite of two worlds gathered under crystal chandeliers that dripped light like frozen rain. Warlords in braided uniforms mingled with foreign consuls in white tie. White Russian princesses glittered beside Chinese merchant heiresses. Jazz played softly from the gallery, a concession to Western tastes, but beneath it, ancient Guzheng strings hummed with older magic. Red silk banners bearing the imperial dragon hung from the rafters, a reminder that tonight mortal and immortal courts met under one roof. Mei-ling arrived in the Harlow motorcar, escorted by a silent chauffeur who would not meet her eyes. She wore the black silk Vivian had provided, severe, high-collared, unforgiving. It concealed the swell of her pregnancy but could not hide it entirely. The fabric strained slightly across her middle. Her copper hair was drawn back in a tight chignon. No ornament save the single jade hairpin she had kept since that morning after. No mask tonight. There was nothing left to conceal. She stepped into the ballroom alone. Conversation did not cease, but it altered, became a low, predatory murmur. Heads turned. Fans lifted to shield whispers. Eyes assessed, judged, dismissed. She felt the weight of every gaze like stones dropped into deep water. Vivian waited near the center dais, radiant in scarlet brocade, flanked by Uncle Reginald and Aunt Cecilia. They formed a perfect tableau of concerned family. Vivian's smile was gentle, solicitous. "Courage, cousin," she murmured as Mei-ling approached. "This will soon be over." A raised platform had been prepared at the far end of the hall, a low dais flanked by imperial guards in scaled armor that caught the light like fish scales. Upon it stood a throne of dark jade, empty. The ritual began. A herald in crimson robes struck a gong. Silence fell. "Honored guests," he intoned, "we gather this night to affirm the ancient compact between the mortal realm and the Jade Throne. Yet before celebration, a matter of honor demands address. All eyes turned to Mei Ling. She was guided forward, two guards appearing at her elbows with courteous but inexorable strength, until she stood alone at the foot of the dais. The herald unrolled a scroll. Miss Mei Ling Vale, known as the Nightingale of Shanghai, stands accused by common report of bearing a child out of wedlock, father unknown. The assembly seeks clarification for the sake of harmony between realms. The words echoed coldly. A warlord near the front, General Duan, notorious for his cruelty, leaned forward. "Speak, woman. Name the father or admit your shame." Laughter rippled, thin and sharp. Vivian stepped forward, voice trembling with practiced grief. "My poor cousin suffers from confusion." The night in question, the ritual wine affected her strangely. She claims not to remember. More laughter, louder. Uncle Reginald added gravely, "We seek only truth. If no father can be named, the child is bastard, and the mother unfit for decent society." Mei Ling lifted her chin. The room swam slightly. Fear, perhaps, or the child turning within her, but her voice emerged steady. "I have no name to give, not because I hide it, but because it was taken from me. The wine was tampered with. I was robbed of choice and memory alike." A hiss of disbelief. Someone called, "Convenient excuse." The herald raised a hand for silence. "If no proof is offered." He never finished. The air shifted, grew heavier, as though the room itself inhaled. From the shadowed archway at the rear of the hall, a figure emerged. He moved without hurry, yet the crowd parted before him like water before a ship's prow. Tall, taller than any mortal, cloaked in midnight brocade embroidered with subtle silver dragons. Silver hair flowed unbound past his shoulders. His face was timeless perfection. High cheekbones, a mouth carved for commands, eyes the molten amber of ancient suns. The Dragon Emperor. Gasps rippled outward. Bows swept the floor like wheat before wind. Even the warlords inclined their heads. He ascended the dais in 3 measured steps and turned to face the assembly. Power radiated from him, old, immense, patient as mountains. Mei Ling's heart hammered. She had seen those eyes before, in moonlight, in dreams. He looked down at her. Not with recognition, not yet, but with something fierce and protective that stole her breath. "Enough," he said. One word, quiet, yet it silenced the hall as utterly as thunder. The herald bowed low. "Your Imperial Majesty." The Emperor raised one pale hand. "This woman stands under my protection." A stunned pause. General Duan found his voice. "With respect, Majesty, the matter concerns mortal honor." "It concerns me." The Emperor's tone brooked no argument. He descended 1 step, placing himself between Mei Ling and the crowd. "The child she carries," he announced, voice carrying to every corner, "is mine." The silence that followed was cataclysmic. Then chaos. Gasps, shouts, whispers exploding like fireworks. Vivian went white as rice paper. Uncle Reginald's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Mei Ling swayed. Strong hands caught her elbows, the Emperor's own. His touch was cool, steadying. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now, because from this moment on, nothing in this story remains the same. He leaned close, lips nearly brushing her ear, voice a thread of sound meant only for her. "Play along. I will protect you and the child. Trust me." His eyes, those amber eyes, held hers with desperate intensity. And in their depths something flickered. Not calculation, recognition struggling to surface. She managed a tiny nod. He straightened, addressing the hall once more. "Miss Vale will remove to the Jade Palace immediately. She will be treated as imperial consort. Any slight against her is a slight against the throne." He offered his arm. After a heartbeat, she took it. They left the ballroom together, the immortal sovereign and the disgraced singer, while behind them the assembly bowed in stunned reverence and fear. In the imperial motorcar, a sleek black Rolls-Royce flying the dragon banner, they sat in silence as Shanghai's lights blurred past. His hand rested on the seat between them, not touching her, yet close enough to feel his cool presence. At last he spoke, voice low. "I needed an heir, the northern province's rebel." The compact phrase, "a child, especially one of mixed blood, could bind mortal and immortal realms." She turned to him. "And I needed salvation. You gave it. But why me?" He met her gaze. "Because when I saw you standing alone, something in me recognized you. I do not yet know why." His fingers brushed the jade hairpin in her hair, the one from that morning after. "Where did you get this?" "It was left in the room," she whispered. "The morning after the masquerade." His breath caught. Memory stirred behind his eyes like a dragon waking. "Then perhaps," he said softly, "this is no mere political convenience after all." The car turned toward the hidden entrance of the Jade Palace, and Mei Ling stepped from one world into another, carrying a child who was no longer bastard, but heir. And in the Emperor's ancient heart, a forgotten night began to burn its way back to light. The Jade Palace lay hidden beneath the Bund, its entrance concealed behind an unassuming tea-house that had stood for centuries. To mortal eyes it was merely a place for scholars and opium dreamers. To those who knew, a silk-curtained door in the back led down stone steps worn smooth by immortal feet into a realm untouched by Shanghai's clamor. Mei Ling descended those steps in the Emperor's shadow, one hand resting lightly on the carved jade railing, the other cradling the curve of her belly. Torches and bronze dragon claws lit the way, their flames burning blue and steady. The air grew cooler, scented with sandalwood and ancient stone. At the bottom, vast doors of black lacquer swung open without touch, revealing halls of breathtaking splendor. Pillars wrapped in gold leaf, floors of polished nephrite, ceilings painted with constellations that slowly turned as though tracking Real stars. Servants, silent, pale figures in silver-trimmed robes, bowed as they passed. No one spoke. No one met her eyes. The Emperor, Kai Jun, he had told her quietly in the car, though no one else dared use the name, led her through corridors lined with treasures. Ming porcelain, Tang horses, scrolls older than nations. Finally they reached a suite of rooms prepared for her. Bedchamber, sitting room, private bath, all opening onto an indoor garden where cherry trees bloomed eternally beneath a domed glass ceiling enchanted to show night sky. "Your apartments," he said simply. "You will want for nothing." Mei Ling stood in the center of the sitting room, turning slowly. Silk hangings in deep crimson and jade. A low table already set with tea and mooncakes. A canopied bed wide enough for four, draped in indigo. Everything perfect. Everything impersonal. "It is beautiful," she said at last. He inclined his head. "Rest. Servants will attend you. I will visit tomorrow." He left without another word, the doors closing softly behind him. That night she did not sleep. She paced the gardens instead, bare feet on cool stone, hand resting on her belly as the child turned restlessly. The palace was silent save for distant water dripping into pools. No city sounds penetrated here. No rickshaw bells, no jazz, no gunfire from the concessions. Only eternity. In public, the fiction began at once. The next evening she was dressed in imperial crimson, robes heavy with phoenix embroidery, and escorted to the grand hall for her formal presentation. Hundreds gathered. Immortal courtiers with eyes like winter stars, mortal envoys allowed rare audience, advisors in scaled armor. Kai Jun sat upon the jade throne, silver hair unbound, expression remote as mountain snow. He rose when she entered. "Beloved guests," he announced, voice carrying effortlessly. "I present Mei Ling Vale, bearer of my heir, honored consort of the Jade Throne. Bows swept the floor. Whispers followed. Curiosity, calculation, disdain thinly veiled. She stood beside him on the dais, hand resting in the crook of his arm, feeling the cool strength beneath brocade. He did not look at her, but his thumb brushed once across her knuckles, a fleeting reassurance, or perhaps accident. Afterward, in private corridors, the distance returned. He visited daily, always formal. Inquiries after her health. Discussions of palace protocol. Updates on the Northern Rebellion, carefully neutral, as though reporting to an ally rather than a woman sharing his roof. He never lingered, never touched her beyond what courtesy demanded. Yet she felt his gaze when he thought she did not notice. He would stand at the garden door watching her read, or pause in the corridor when she sang softly to the child, old lullabies her mother had taught her. Once she woke in the night to find him in the shadows of her chamber, motionless as statue, eyes luminous in darkness. When she stirred, he vanished without sound. The court intrigue began immediately. Immortal ladies, beautiful, ancient, titled, visited with gifts of jade bracelets and silk fans, their smiles sharp as porcelain edges. Such a delicate constitution, one murmured, eyes flicking to Mei Ling's belly. Mortal pregnancies are so fragile. Another. His Majesty has never taken a consort before. How fortunate you are to provide what centuries of worthy candidates could not. Mortal envoys were worse, calculating whether the half-blood heir strengthened or weakened the throne. Vivian sent letters, of course, delivered by palace courier, sealed with Harlow wax, full of cloying concern. Dearest cousin, one hears the most astonishing tales. An imperial consort, how swiftly fortune turns. Uncle is beside himself with pride and relief. Do right when the child arrives. We long to know if the heir favors its illustrious father. Mei Ling burned them unread after the first. Weeks became months. Her belly rounded fully now, the child active and strong. Palace healers, immortals skilled in both ancient arts and modern medicine, attended her with meticulous care. They spoke of the baby's unusual vitality. The heartbeat too rapid for mortal, too slow for pure immortal. A bridge, they called it, or a fulcrum. Kai Jun attended every examination, standing silent at the foot of the bed, face unreadable. Once, when the healer pressed a cool hand to feel movement, the child kicked hard. Kai Jun's composure cracked, just slightly, eyes widening in wonder before the mask returned. Yet in private he kept distance. One night, heavy with child and heavier with questions, Mei Ling found him in the palace library, a vast chamber of scrolls and leather-bound volumes lit by floating lanterns. He stood at a window overlooking the eternal cherry blossoms, silver hair catching blue flame. "Why do you watch me?" she asked without preamble. He did not turn. "To ensure your safety." "That is not all." A pause. "I find myself drawn," he admitted quietly, "in ways I do not yet understand." She stepped closer. "Because of the child?" He turned then. Amber eyes met green. "Because of you." The words hung between them, fragile as rice paper. Then a courier entered. Urgent news from the north. The moment shattered. He left without another word. Mei Ling returned to her gilded cage, feeling the walls close tighter. She was honored, protected, elevated beyond imagination, and utterly alone. In the quiet hours, she sang to her daughter, soft English lullabies and Chinese folk songs, promising a world where she would never know shame. But doubt grew like winter moss. This was salvation, yes, but salvation built on a lie could only stand so long. And when it fell, it would bury them all. Spring crept into the Jade Palace the way secrets do, slowly, then all at once. Cherry blossoms drifted eternally in the indoor gardens, their petals never browning, never falling to earth. Lanterns floated higher as days lengthened, casting golden light across nephrite floors. Mei Ling's pregnancy advanced into its final months. Her belly rounded fully now, the child heavy and active, pressing against her ribs with insistent feet. Outwardly, everything was perfect. She wanted for nothing. Servants anticipated every need. Bowls of lychee and ginger to ease nausea, silk cushions embroidered with cranes for her back, healers who monitored the baby's heartbeat with cool, capable hands. In public, Kai Jun treated her with impeccable courtesy, escorting her to banquets on his arm, ensuring she sat at his right hand, silencing any whisper of doubt with a single glacial glance. Yet the distance between them grew like frost on glass. He came to her apartments less often now. When he did, conversation was careful, confined to the child's health or palace affairs. He never lingered after the healers left, never touched her beyond the brief press of fingers guiding her through doorways. At night she felt him sometimes, standing in the shadows beyond the lantern light, watching. But when she turned, the space was empty. The court's suspicion thickened. Immortal advisors, ancient beings with faces like carved ivory, spoke openly in corridors she was meant to overhear. A mortal consort, one would murmur. Unprecedented. Dangerous. The child may not survive birth, another replied. Half-bloods rarely do. Or if it does, a third added, voice silk over steel. It may prove unstable. Mei Ling walked faster, hand cradling her belly, pretending not to hear. But the worst came from Kai Jun's own searches. She discovered them by accident. One afternoon, restless and heavy, she wandered into his private study seeking a book of Tang poetry she had seen there. The room was empty, scrolls and ledgers neatly arrayed. A drawer stood slightly ajar, careless, for one so precise. Inside lay correspondence bound with black ribbon. She should have closed it. Instead she read. Letters in Kai Jun's elegant hand. Sent to agents across Shanghai and beyond. Continue the search. A woman of mixed blood, copper hair, green eyes, present at the harvest masquerade. The memory remains veiled, but the connection does not. I must find her. Another, any detail, voice, scent, jewelry. She wore jade, perhaps. The enchantment in the wine obscures recollection, but the pull remains. Find her. Offer whatever is required. Mei Ling's fingers went numb. He was searching for someone else. The woman from that night. The one whose face he truly remembered, whose absence haunted him. Not her. Never her. She had been the convenient vessel who appeared at the precise moment he needed an heir. The lie had served its purpose. Now he sought the real object of his longing. The realization settled in her chest like cold lead. That night she did not sing to the child. She sat in the garden instead, beneath the eternal blossoms, and let silence fill her. The baby kicked, strong, demanding attention, and tears came unbidden. I'm sorry, she whispered, palm against the taut silk of her gown. I thought perhaps he might come to care. But we are only the placeholder. The withdrawal began subtly. She declined public appearances, pleading fatigue the healers confirmed. Meals were taken in her rooms. When Kai Jun visited, she kept answers brief, eyes lowered. She stopped wandering the corridors where whispers waited. He noticed, of course he noticed. One evening he found her in the garden again, standing beneath a lantern that cast amber light across her face. She had grown heavier, movements slower, but there was a new stillness about her, like a lake frozen overnight. You are unwell? He asked, concern threading his voice. The child tires me, she replied evenly. Nothing more. He stepped closer. You have not attended court in a fortnight. It is better so. I am a distraction. His brow furrowed. You are my consort. Your place is beside me. She met his gaze then, green eyes steady, defiant in their quiet pain. Is it? Or is my place merely to bear the air until you find the one you truly seek? The words hung between them like a blade. Kai Jun stilled. What do you mean? I have seen the letters. Her voice did not waver. The searches. The woman with copper hair and jade. I understand, Majesty. I was convenient. When you find her, the one the enchantment stole from you, I will withdraw gracefully. The child will remain to serve its purpose. You need not fear scandal." For a long moment he said nothing. Then softly, "You believe I search for another. I know you do." He moved closer, slowly, as though approaching something wild that might bolt. "Mei Ling." His voice was rough. "There is no other." She laughed once, bitter, broken. "I have read your words. Spare me the courtesy." He reached into his sleeve and drew out a folded paper, one of the letters she had seen. He held it out. "Read it again." Aloud. She took it with trembling fingers. "Continue the search. A woman of mixed blood, copper hair, green eyes, her throat closed, present at the harvest masquerade. The memory remains veiled." She looked up, confusion fracturing her certainty. "You describe me. I describe you," he confirmed quietly. "From the first letter onward. I did not know your name then. Only fragments, your voice, your scent, the jade pin left behind. I have been searching for you, Mei Ling. Only you." The paper slipped from her fingers. "But you claimed the child for politics." "I claimed the child because it is mine." His voice lowered. "And I claimed you because some part of me, deeper than memory, recognized you as mine from the moment I saw you standing alone in that ballroom." Tears spilled then, hot and sudden. "I thought," she whispered. "I know what you thought." He stepped closer still, until she could feel the cool aura of him. "I have kept distance because I feared pressing you. You came here under duress. I would not add to your burden." He reached out, slowly, giving her time to refuse, and brushed a tear from her cheek with his thumb. "I have waited centuries for many things," he said, "but nothing like this. Nothing like you." The baby kicked hard as though in agreement. Mei Ling laughed through tears, a watery, wondering sound. Outside the garden, whispers of rebellion grew louder. Vivian's agents moved in shadows. The court circled like wolves scenting weakness. But in that moment, beneath eternal blossoms, the lowest descent ended, and something fragile, something real began to rise. Summer heat pressed against the Jade Palace like a living thing. Yet within its depths the air remained cool and scented with lotus from hidden pools. Mei Ling entered her 8th month, her body heavy with child, movements deliberate and slow. The healers spoke of imminent birth, perhaps within weeks. The child grew strong, vital, impatient, and Mei Ling changed. The woman who had once accepted isolation as armor now refused it. She began with small acts. One morning she dismissed the silent immortal maids who dressed her in prescribed crimson and chose instead a simple tunic of pale jade, color of new leaves of hope. When a court lady raised elegant brows at the informality, Mei Ling met her gaze steadily. "I dress for comfort," she said, "not display." The lady bowed and withdrew. Next came the gardens. She ordered changes. Mortal flowers planted among the eternal cherry, peonies, chrysanthemums, fragrant osmanthus that bloomed only in season and died. When the head gardener protested that such plants disrupted the palace's timeless harmony, she replied, "Time is what this child will know. Let the gardens teach her that beauty passes and returns." The gardener bowed and obeyed. She walked the corridors now, slowly, resting often on marble benches, but unafraid. Courtiers who once whispered behind fans now fell silent as she passed. Some bowed deeper than protocol required. Others watched with new calculation. She sang again, not in private but openly, in the lesser hall where musicians practiced, in the indoor gardens at dusk. Old opera arias, folk songs, lullabies for her daughter. Her voice, rested for months, had deepened, gained new resonance. Immortals who had heard every melody across centuries paused to listen. Mortals wept. Kaijun noticed everything. He watched from shadowed archways as she directed servants to rearrange furniture in her apartments, bringing light into corners long dimmed. He overheard her gentle but firm corrections when a healer suggested restricting her movement. "You carry imperial blood," the healer protested. "Caution is wisdom." "The child carries my blood also," Mei Ling replied, "and I will not meet her lying down in fear." The healer bowed and withdrew. One evening he found her in the library, reaching for a high shelf of poetry. Before he could move to assist, she had dragged a small stool forward and climbed. Slowly, carefully, but with determination. "Mei Ling," he said, voice laced with rare alarm. She glanced down, volume clutched triumphantly. "I am pregnant, Majesty, not porcelain." He caught her as she descended, hands steadying her waist. For a moment they stood close, her belly pressing lightly against him, the child giving a firm kick as though in greeting. "You risk too much," he murmured. "I risk too little if I hide," she answered. "This palace has been a tomb for centuries. I will not let it become mine." His eyes searched hers. Amber meeting green, ancient meeting defiant. "You are changing my world," he said quietly. "Your world needed changing." He laughed then, a low, surprised sound that echoed strangely in the vast library. The sound transformed his face, softening centuries of reserve. That night he lingered after the healers left. She sat in the garden, brushing her loosened hair, copper waves spilling over pale silk. He stood at the threshold longer than usual. "May I?" he asked at last. She nodded. He entered, moving with that fluid grace, and knelt behind her. Cool fingers took the brush from her hand. Slowly, carefully, he began to brush her hair. Long strokes from crown to waist, gentle detangling of knots. Neither spoke. The only sounds were the brush through silk, distant water, her quiet breathing. When he finished, he did not rise. Instead, he rested his hands lightly on her shoulders. "I have lived 2,000 years," he said into the hush. "I have seen empires rise and fall. I thought I knew every shade of loneliness." His thumbs traced small circles at the base of her neck. "You have taught me new ones, and ended them." Mei Ling turned, awkward with her belly, to face him. His expression was stripped of court mask, open, vulnerable, ancient eyes reflecting lantern flame. "I was afraid," he admitted, "of wanting you too much, of binding you to a life you did not choose." She reached up, touching his cheek, cool immortal skin against warm mortal palm. "I chose the night I walked into that ballroom alone," she said. "I chose again when I took your arm. And I choose now. Every day I change this palace. Every time I sing. Every breath I take beside you." He leaned forward, forehead resting against hers. "Then let there be no more distance," he whispered. His lips brushed hers, tentative, asking. She answered, leaning into the kiss, hands sliding into silver hair. It was soft, chaste, profound. When they parted, he pressed his palm to her belly. The child kicked hard against it. "She approves," Mei Ling said, smiling through sudden tears. He smiled too, real, radiant. Outside the garden, rebellion brewed. Vivian's agents had not been idle. Mortal warlords, fearful of a half-immortal heir upsetting power balances, funded assassins. Immortal purists, believing the throne tainted by mortal blood, plotted in secret councils. Whispers reached the palace. Attempts planned, blades poisoned with rare toxins that could fell even immortals. Kaijun doubled guards. Healers tasted every dish. He himself stood watch some nights, but Mei Ling refused fear. One dawn, heavy and slow, she walked the battlements. Forbidden to mortals, but no guard dared stop the consort now. She stood looking over the hidden city below, hand on her belly, hair loose in the wind. Kaijun found her there. "You should not be here," he said, concern sharpening his voice. "Nor should our daughter be born in a tomb," she replied. "Let her know sky before stone." He wrapped his cloak around her shoulders against the morning chill. "They are coming," he said quietly. "The attempts will escalate soon." "Then let them come," she answered, turning to face him. "We will meet them together, not as emperor and convenience, but as partners." He took her hands. "As equals. As equals." Below them, Shanghai woke to another day of jazz and gunfire, opium and ambition. Above, in the Jade Palace, a defiant flame burned brighter, warming ancient stone, melting centuries of ice. The child quickened, eager for the world. And for the first time in 2,000 years, the Dragon Emperor felt something stronger than duty. He felt hope. Autumn storms lashed Shanghai, turning the Bund into a river of rain and neon reflections. Within the Jade Palace, tension coiled like incense smoke, thick, fragrant with danger. Mei Ling's time drew near. The child had dropped lower, pressing relentlessly. Every breath felt borrowed. Healers hovered constantly now, their cool hands measuring, listening, murmuring in ancient tongues. They spoke of the birth coming within days, perhaps hours. The palace prepared. Silk sheets boiled clean, rare herbs burned to purify the air, silver basins filled with water drawn from sacred springs. Yet outside the palace walls, shadows gathered. Vivian had not accepted defeat. From safe houses in the French concession, she coordinated with disgruntled warlords and immortal purists alike, promising power, wealth, the throne restored to pure blood. Assassins were hired. Human hunters armed with bullets dipped in rare poisons, rogue immortals wielding blades forged from meteor iron. Their mandate was simple: eliminate the consort and the half-blood child before birth, shattering Kaijun's claim and plunging the realm into chaos ripe for seizing. The first attempt came at dusk. Mei Ling, restless and unable to lie still, had walked to the indoor garden despite healers' protests. She stood beneath the cherry trees, hand pressed to her lower back, breathing through a tightening that might have been practice or the real beginning. Kaijun found her there. He had been in council all day, voices raised, maps unrolled, reports of troop movements in the north. His face was drawn with fatigue no immortal should feel. "You should rest," he said, concern sharpening his voice. "I am tired of resting." She managed to smile. "The child and I needed air that moves." He started to reply when the lanterns flickered. Once, unnaturally. Then hell arrived. Assassins poured from hidden passages, black-clad figures moving with lethal grace. Blades flashed. Poison darts whistled through air. Kaijun reacted faster than thought. He shoved Mei Ling behind a stone pillar, his body shielding hers as the first attackers reached them. Claws extended from his fingertips, long, black, razor-sharp. He met the vanguard in a blur of silver hair and midnight brocade. The garden became battlefield. Immortal guards materialized, engaging the intruders in brutal silence. Stone cracked under impacts that would have shattered mortal bone. Blood, red and black, spattered eternal blossoms. Kaijun fought like a storm given form. He tore through enemies with ruthless efficiency, ancient power unleashed without restraint. One assassin lunged with a poisoned dagger. Kaijun caught the wrist, snapped it, drove the blade into its owner's throat. Another fired a crossbow bolt dipped in nightshade essence. He twisted unnaturally, caught the bolt mid-air, hurled it back through the attacker's eye. Yet they kept coming. Mei Ling, pressed against the pillar, felt the child drop lower. A sudden, shocking pressure. Warmth trickled down her thighs. Her water had broken. "Not now. Please, not now." An assassin broke through the melee, a rogue immortal with eyes like chipped obsidian. He moved straight for her, blade raised to end the threat at its source. Kaijun saw. He roared, a sound that shook the glass dome, and abandoned his opponents to intercept. But distance and numbers conspired against him. The assassin reached her first. Mei Ling did not think. She stepped out, not away but forward, placing her body between the blade and Kai Jun's exposed back as he fought to reach her. The dagger meant for the Emperor plunged into her shoulder instead. Pain exploded white-hot, blinding. She staggered, blood soaking crimson silk, but stayed on her feet long enough to see Kai Jun reach them. He caught her as she fell, eyes wild with horror. Mei Ling. His free hand closed around the assassin's throat, crushing windpipe and spine in one motion. The body dropped like rubbish. Guards swarmed the remaining attackers, ending the fight in seconds. But Kai Jun saw only her. Blood poured from the wound, too much too fast. Poison burned along veins. She felt it spreading like ice fire. "The child!" she gasped. "It's coming!" Healers rushed forward, but Kai Jun waved them back with a snarl. He carried her himself, cradling her against his chest, moving faster than sight through corridors to the prepared birthing chamber. Servants scattered before him. He laid her on the bed, hands already tearing silk to expose the wound. "Hold on," he commanded, voice breaking. "Stay with me." The poison was meant for immortals, slow to kill his kind, but devastating to mortals. Her vision blurred. Pain from the wound and from contractions braided together until she could not tell them apart. Kai Jun leaned over her, fangs extending instinctively. "There is one way," he said urgently. "My blood can neutralize the poison, but it will change things." She managed a nod. "Anything, for the child." He bit his own wrist, deep savage, then pressed the wound to her lips. "Drink." Immortal blood, copper-sweet, electric, flooded her mouth. She swallowed reflexively. Power surged through dying veins, burning away poison, knitting flesh, and with it came memory. The moment her blood mingled with his, wound to mouth, life to life, the veil shattered. Kai Jun froze. Images crashed through him, the masquerade, the drugged wine, colliding in the corridor. Her hand in his, the private suite, moonlight on copper hair. Her whisper, "You are beautiful," his broken reply, "Do not say that to me here." The kiss that ignited centuries of restraint. Her body arching beneath his. The moment of union when something ancient in his blood recognized its mate. He remembered everything. The child was not a convenient lie. It was his. Born of that stolen, enchanted night. Born of them. A cry tore from his throat. Rage, joy, anguish braided together. Guards outside the door flinched at the sound. Mei Ling's eyes fluttered open, clearer now, pain receding under immortal blood's influence. Contractions strengthened, true labor now, unstoppable. Healers took over, guiding, encouraging. Kai Jun stayed at her side, holding her hand, whispering endearments in languages older than recorded time. Hours blurred, pain, pressure, the ancient rhythm of birth. At dawn, as the first real sunlight for months pierced the palace wards, their daughter came into the world. A fierce cry, strong, indignant, filled the chamber. The child was perfect. Silver wisps of hair already showing at her temples. Eyes that opened to reveal shifting color. Green like her mother's, flecked with amber like her father's. Kai Jun took her first, hands trembling as he wrapped her in silk. He placed her in Mei Ling's arms. "Our daughter," he said, voice wrecked with wonder. Mei Ling looked up at him through exhaustion and tears. "You remember." "I remember." He knelt beside the bed, pressing his forehead to hers. "I remember choosing you that night. I remember losing you to enchantment. I remember finding you again when I claimed you before the world." He kissed her, soft, reverent. "I will never let you go again." Outside, the last assassins were hunted down and ended. Vivian's network crumbled. Names extracted, allies fleeing or falling. But in the birthing chamber, none of it mattered. There was only a new family. Mortal woman turned near immortal by love and blood. Ancient emperor humbled by fatherhood. And the child who would bridge worlds. The defiant flame had become a dawn. And Shanghai, mortal and immortal alike, would never be the same. 5 years had passed since the night blood and revelation forged the Jade Palace anew. Shanghai above had changed. Skyscrapers rose higher along the bund. Jazz gave way to swing. War clouds gathered on the horizon as Japanese ambitions sharpened. But beneath, in the hidden realm, time moved differently. The eternal cherry blossoms still bloomed. Lanterns still floated. Yet the palace itself had transformed. Mortal flowers now thrived alongside immortal. Peonies in spring, lotuses in summer, chrysanthemums in autumn. Children's laughter echoed through corridors once silent for centuries. Guards smiled more often. Courtiers, immortal and mortal alike, bowed with genuine respect when the empress passed. Mei Ling, once the disgraced nightingale, now walked those halls as empress of the Jade Throne. She wore robes of deep jade and gold, phoenixes embroidered in thread that caught light like fire. Her copper hair, streaked now with subtle silver from the immortal blood that had saved her life, was bound in an imperial crown of jade and pearl. The severe chignon of her past had given way to softer styles, often loose about her shoulders when in private. Her eyes, still sea-green, carried new depths, wisdom earned through pain and joy alike. On a crisp autumn morning in 1935, she stood in the expanded gardens, now open to sky in places, allowing real sunlight and seasonal rain. Beside her, Kai Jun held their daughter on his shoulders. Lianhua Lotus Blossom was 5 years old, a whirlwind of silver-black hair and mischievous amber-green eyes. She reached for a drifting maple leaf, giggling as her father turned slowly to let her catch it. "Higher, Baba," she demanded imperiously. Kai Jun laughed, the sound rich and frequent now, and lifted her higher. "As my empress commands." Mei Ling watched them, heart full. The child had grown strong, vitality blending mortal warmth with immortal endurance. She tired less than human children, healed faster, yet blushed with emotion and cried real tears. The prophecy's child of two bloods had indeed become the bridge. Northern rebellions quieted when Lianhua's existence was revealed. Warlords swore fealty rather than risk the Dragon Emperor's wrath over his beloved daughter. Immortal purists found their prejudice softened by a little girl who called them uncle and auntie with fearless affection. That afternoon, in the Grand Hall, Kai Jun announced the next step. The throne room was filled, not with forced ceremony, but genuine gathering. Mortal envoys sat beside immortal advisors. Children, offspring of mixed court marriages now encouraged, played quietly in corners. Kai Jun rose, Lianhua on his hip, Mei Ling at his side. "For centuries," he began, voice carrying effortlessly, "this realm has hidden from the world above. We have preserved tradition at the cost of life. My empress," he turned to Mei Ling, eyes warm, "has taught me that preservation without growth is merely slow death." Mei Ling stepped forward. "We open the Jade Palace," she announced. "Not fully, some mysteries must remain, but enough. A school will be established for children of both worlds. Mortal and immortal youth will study together history, arts, sciences, the old magics and the new. They will learn that blood does not divide us. Choice does." Cheers rose, spontaneous, heartfelt. Later, in their private chambers, the family gathered. Lianhua played on the floor with carved jade dragons that moved by themselves, a gift from her father. Kai Jun sat beside Mei Ling on a wide silk couch, his arm around her shoulders, her head resting against him. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked quietly. "The life you might have had above, fame, freedom, a mortal span?" She turned to him, tracing the line of his jaw. "I had fame. It was hollow. Freedom without love is merely wandering. An immortal span," she smiled. "Your blood lengthened mine. I will walk beside you for centuries yet." He kissed her, slow, reverent. Lianhua looked up from her toys. "Mama, Baba story." Mei Ling laughed and opened her arms. The child climbed between them, nestling close. "Once upon a time," Mei Ling began, voiced the same rich instrument that had once filled theaters. There was a nightingale who sang alone, Kaijun continued, and a dragon who had forgotten how to dream. Together they wove the tale, not of disgrace and lies, but of courage and truth, of a night lost to enchantment that became a dawn found in love. Outside, real autumn leaves drifted across the opened garden skylights, red and gold against eternal green. Inside, the Empress of Eternal Dawn held her family close, knowing that from the ashes of a lie had risen something unbreakable. Shanghai above continued its turbulent dance. But below, in the Jade Palace, a new era had begun. One forged not in shadow and deception, but in defiant, radiant light. And the nightingale sang no longer alone.